Welcome. I hope to all the new faces that you enjoy this webinar. To all the people who come back, you know what to expect. It's your fault to have joined me. In previous webinars, we have focused on recommendation bots, so on how anybody visiting a library or a university library can search or research literature, can be inspired by recommendations of the bot. This time, upon popular demand, we are focusing on what previously we called service bot, and now we call infobot, which is basically a bot that pretty much can allow chats about all the information you feed it to. Typically, in the case of libraries or museums or other institutions, it will be service information, at least in the first approximation. But really, it can be anything. It can be regulations, it can be internal HR stuff. I'll show you how to feed all this into the AI and then allow chats with this information. So this is why we call it information bot, to allow a little bit broader perspective on what these bots can do. Some remarks about this webinar. So first of all, use the chat to ask questions. I'm not going to ask them immediately, but we'll collect them. And if there's time, I'll answer them at the end. If there's no time because I talk too much, we will answer them following the end of this webinar. Also, at the end of this webinar, there will be a questionnaire with 5 or 6 questions. So first of all, we would be very grateful if you answer these questions because it allows us to also design following webinars. But also, if you have anything to remark or if you have anything to ask, you can also use the questionnaire and we'll answer that too. Also, there will be a recording of this webinar, which will be made available on our website. Also, due to popular demand, we are going to subtitle this webinar in Italian and Spanish. And if anybody wants to provide another language, we can provide the subtitles too. The good thing about Spanish, Italian, and French is that I can proofread it. So I'm sure that what the subtitles say is what I wanted to say, which for other languages is a bit more difficult. Also, I'll be at some events. So in Gorizia, in Italy, in the first week of October, for a conference, L'intelligenza artificiale nei luoghi della cultura. I'll try my Italian at that conference, and the Italians among you, you'll have to suffer through my attempts at Italian. And in the third week of October, I'll be in Oslo at a conference. So all the Norwegians come around because I think the best way to communicate about artificial intelligence is still in person and not through digital means. And one last remark, maybe. Of course, so the goal of these webinars is really to provide information about artificial intelligence and the use of artificial intelligence in general. I try to not turn these webinars into product presentations. I hate these webinars. I never visit them myself. But of course, also you would probably be interested in practical examples. And the practical examples come from our product, obviously. So I excuse myself for presenting our product. But as I said, it's more about the information about artificial intelligence in general. That said, let's dive right into it. I'm going to share my screen. And I hope you see the infobot right now. I'm going to check with my... can somebody say me whether everything is okay? I guess so. So if nobody complains, I assume you see what I see. Okay, infobot, I told you already why infobot or information bot and not service bot, because it's actually everything that you can allow chats about. And this will be the topic. I will Who am I? I'm Tilman Scheel. I'm the basically founder and CEO of the About Something bot, Ask. But I'm also CEO of video library for libraries. So if you want to have beautiful European festival films as an offer in your library, that would be me too. We created actually Ask as a way because we have this video library with 1,000 films for of international festivals. But they're more art house films, and and their directors are not known. They're made by young people. They're made by art lovers, it was difficult to navigate in a library of 1,000 films because it's not necessarily by superstars or by world famous directors, but really by content. And so this is actually how we came up with the idea of creating a chatbot to allow access to that. And then this chatbot developed into the first, I think, worldwide recommendation bot for public libraries. Since then, we have, of course, expanded that, and this is how it all came into being and how we ended up here today at the webinar. I want to just very briefly the structure of this webinar. The first is also a very brief overview about what kind of conversations are possible with an information bot. The focus, however, will be the main part, the second part, which is because how to get your information into the bot. Because that, of course, is the key. You can the key for any artificial intelligence, as for any intelligence, also human intelligence, is that what you don't put in, you cannot talk about. You cannot get out. So assuming that whatever you put in can be talked about, the focus is on stuff, how to put stuff in. And the third, I want to lose a word on hallucinations because with recommendations bots, it's less of a problem because you talk about very specific things. With service or information questions, of course, the topics are more broadly, and bots tend to invent things if they don't know something. It's like my young children. And so here it becomes a more relevant topic than it is for recommendation bots. And some words about the budget, so you understand why there is some cost and what the cost is for. Okay, so first thing, which chat for which AI bot? So we have our terminology. By the way, the terminology has changed. We had 4 kind of types of bots. By now we have 3. Developing and developed out of our experience. I'll explain you why. So we have the recommendation bot, which basically inspires for people who don't really know what to do. The typical after work Netflix scenario. I'm bored. I don't know what to do. Don't give me something stressful. What can I do? Or something in the style of a book I liked. So basically browsing inspiration. But you can already do research questions with a recommendation bot because you can research for literature on specific topics. And so you can ask, is there in the library a comparative analysis on the theories on, I don't know, German idealism or something, or cancer research. So this is so you can use it for research, for researching literature. And of course, I'll show you later, you can also approach children with an adequate language and an adequate conversation. So you can recommend asterisks to them, or you can basically answer any kind of questions that might pop into a children's head, and I can tell you there are many. The second thing, and this is of course the topic of this webinar, is the information bot or the infobot. That of course contains as the main topic service questions. Where's the cafeteria? I lost my library card. Are you open tomorrow? Or what's if for example, if you're planning events in your museum, in your library, or also on campus, that of course is current information that given the right setup, and we'll talk about that, you can have the bot answer. But then of course you can also feed it knowledge questions, so more in-depth questions. You can upload PR press releases. I'll show you an example later. You can ask, is there a procedure and a workflow for a specific topic that, for example, somebody who starts working at your institution is looking for. As we all know, onboarding is something that nobody really has time for. So especially newcomers are a bit lost. A bot can help with that. So, for example, you can put HR documents in there. So, how to apply for a holiday, what to do if I'm sick. All of these is information that you can provide the information bot with. So you can use it for all kinds of setups. And then, so these bots actually are the bots that we have experience with and that we are providing to clients. The content bot, just to round the picture, is what we call the content bot. Is what Scopus AI, Google Research, Perplexity do. So you're not talking only about content, but you're talking with the content. So you can. So they have the whole book that you can then ask, or the study. So you not only ask, is there a study on cancer that you can recommend? You ask, what's in this study and what is the conclusion? We don't do that, first of all, because there are too many doing that. Second of all, it's a copyright issue, not for us, but for the libraries. And as long as the copyright question is not solved, I think this is a service that can only be offered actually either for open access content or by the publishers, which is what they do. Of course, in the end, my 2 cents on that is every publisher now does its own AI. Then you have the public you have Elsevier with their own AI. You have Ex Libris with their own AI. It's a bit like VOD. You have Netflix, you have Disney, you have Paramount, you have all these people with their own AI. Whether that makes their knowledge more accessible remains to be seen. But this is a field that's constantly evolving, and we're, as long as nobody tells us build something for us because we want to make accessible the content specifically of our library, we're out of that game so far. But AI is changing quickly, so we might adapt if something comes along. So these are the conversations you typically lead with these bots. Of course, important to know, all of this is just one bot in the front end. The user doesn't see this different kinds of this kinds of types of conversation. So, for example, the recommendation bot that we are running for example, for the Berlin Library, of course, also is an info bot and serves service information. It's just that these bots have different challenges. The data comes from different sources. So I think when thinking about this bot and how to set it up, it makes sense to make a differentiation between those. You'll see later in the webinar why that is the case. So some technical stuff. I hate to bore you with that, but I think it's necessary to understand AI chatbots. And it's also necessary to kind of have an idea about how AI works with your data in order to recognize the problems and in order to make your own decisions of what you want, what you need, and how to proceed with it. So this is a RAG workflow and the prompt workflow. Basically, what you have, and I start with how the metadata comes into the bot at the bottom. By the way, I'll make a very quick intro here. There are previous webinars, which actually I'll link at the end of this presentation, which deal with this in more detail. In this webinar, I'll only explain it because you need to understand how to put your data that you want to allow chats about into this. So metadata. You have the metadata. It's called RAG. I'll come to that in more detail. You put it basically into an embedding model. Embedding model is our first use of AI when actually storing your data in a database. So what happens is that you have the Mark 21 data here, you have the user data, HTML, PDF, whatever you want to feed to the model is being prepared by an importer and sent to the embedding model. Here, it is transformed into so-called vectors, which are, in essence, numerical representations of this data. So basically, you put in some text and you get back a very long number. The key about this number is that it not only contains information about the specific words. So, for example, I don't know, a chair is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. but you get a much longer number, which not only stores the information about the chat, but also about the context. So it's not only about the entities, but also about the relations between the entities. And this is actually the key to artificial intelligence, that it can understand and read context. So once this has happened, once we have stored all your data and turned all your data into vectors, embedding vectors, by the way, this would be the precise term, we store it in the vector database that is run by us or anybody else who's in the market. So we all store the information in the vector database. So this is where the information that we want to put into the bot ends up. And basically the question that will be this webinar is how to get our information in there. 50% of that. So now what happens if there's a conversation with the user, chat? So there's the user. He asks the chatbot, "Hello, good morning," and this good morning, this good morning, is also sent to the embedding model, turned into another vector, so another numerical representation, and this number in this vector is then sent to the vector database, and we're doing a similarity search. So we're looking which vectors are similar to the vector that was created from good morning. And of course, more detailed about from good morning, do you have any information about the content of Immanuel Kant and his theory on practical ethics? So then, of course, the vector will be a little bit bigger. The vector database will then return a search result of this search. And this search result will then again be sent to the LLM, which picks the search results that it deems appropriate, and checks it back here with the prompts. And the prompts is the second place where actually you can put up information in and tell the bot what to do. So not only how to behave, but also, for example, what knowledge to present. And once this data coming from the LLM is checked through the prompts, it will be displayed in the chatbot and turned back to the user. So, and whenever if the conversation continues, this circle here will run again and again and again. Vector similarity search, going back to the LLM and checked with the prompts and going back to the user. So this, in very brief, is the workflow how every AI chatbot out there works. So, and in this setup, you have two possibilities in general to put in your data, either with the prompts here, data, or at the bottom in the RAG. And about these two possibilities of putting your data into the bot, we'll talk today, and I'll show you also how to do it. We'll begin with the prompts. A prompt is nothing else but a command line that you provide the artificial intelligence with. And to show you how that works in practice, I'll share my browser, and I'll show you how that actually works live. So this is a bot that we built for actually University Católica de Montevideo. Very nice. So the first thing that you learn here is that the bot can take whatever form you like. So this is a design they choose. This is a language they chose. But in the back end, this is our bot. Funny enough, steered by prompts in English. So even if you write your prompts in English, the bot can still here, as you can see, answer in Spanish. So language is not a problem, design is not a problem, and implementation is not a problem. What you can also do, which I personally really like, is you can make the bot talk to any kind of target groups. So this is a bot we are setting up for a children's library, and we prompted the bot to use emojis, to use book covers, and to use to make it more beautiful. But and to say basically, I'm sorry, this is German, but it's basically, hey guy, it's hi in our library. We are really happy that you're here. Can we help you with really fun stuff? Emoji, emoji, emoji. But of course, even within the same bot, you can say, you can adapt the hello message or any or the style in which the communication is led using the prompts to any kind of different target groups. So you can say, talk differently to students than to professors, talk differently to staff than to external people. Um, that, of course, requires the knowledge of the bot about who it is talking to. So if we say, for example, don't talk to children differently than to adults, we of course need to know that these are children, and this is then information you have to pass to the bot at the beginning of the conversation. But this is totally possible. So that is one of the interesting things, that you can prompt the bot to address different target groups differently, in different languages, in different tone, with different information. And last bit of background info, and then we are really going to prompt. This is a bot we built for the University of Technische University of Cologne. You can set up different bots and allow different users to do different things. So you can only configure a bot to different target groups. You can also internally have people prompt, just write the prompts, and other people, let's say, for example, visit the statistics and such. This is important because prompting is something you need to learn, and not everybody. For example, with the Cologne people, I think we have 16 people who are participants of the artificial intelligence project, and they have different roles. So prompting is not for everybody because it needs to be learned. And this is our next thing. This is our simplified prompting backend, and I'll show you how actually prompting works for a service bot and on a practical example. So this is actually the prompting backend for the testing of the German National Library. And so this is the welcome message. Greet the user with, I'm the testbot, blah, blah, blah. And as I have shown you before, it can also be done for children in a different way or for research in a different ways. The interesting bit is here. So this is the prompt window that provides the bot with the service information in this case. So you can use the first thing that you have to know about prompting is that you cannot just dump any kind of information in here. The prompting interface is something where you command the bot to do stuff. So you cannot, for example, here's an example. I'll translate quickly. If you are asked about sheet music or, for example, a piano, first ask whether we are talking about our institution in Frankfurt or in Leipzig, because they have different setups. And then you answer this question. If you just dump the information in, for example, Frankfurt has this, Leipzig is that is not sufficient for a bot. As I said, you have to prompt the bot with commands. So if you want to say, if you're asked for music cue sheets by a user, then you have to do this. So it's always, so whenever we set up a service bot, we ask for a list of if-then questions. So if this is asked, then do that. If that is asked, then do that. Of course, this if can be very broad. So for example, so if you asked about opening hours, you don't need you don't need also to say if asked about being open on Sundays, or if asked being open tomorrow. The bot will deduce from its internal knowledge what actually the meaning of opening hours is. But then you have to set a command, if asked about, whether the library is tomorrow, then do that. So this is if then. It's very important if you prompt your information. And then you can say, you have two options. Either you say, then provide this answer, or you can say, which has a huge example, you can say, answer with this link. That has two advantages. The first advantage is it becomes way more specific. So if the bot has to answer with a link, it hallucinates less, because then it has an answer to many of the questions, the answers in the link. The second thing is, and I'll come to that in more detail in the rec thing, The website is usually updated as the first thing in the workflows inside an institution. So if you answer with if you first provide an answer and then provide a reference link to a website, you can be sure that the bot is providing an up-to-date answer. So let's try that. Let's try this in real life. So first of all, we say if we go to the administration, we go to all the chatbots that we have for testing, open for testing, and we go to the German National Library bot. So actually, this is the list of all the things that you can manage. You can do the model and stuff, but this is you can choose the different models. You can use Mistral, the French models, if you are concerned about data protection. But this is not the topic of today's subject. So we say we use a test bot to test this kind of procedure, and we say, for example, where actually, so this is in German, but I can answer in English. Where do I find music sheets for my saxophone? What does the bot do? So now, as it says, is it in Frankfurt or in Leipzig? So different locations. And I say Frankfurt. And it says Frankfurt location music sheets are issued only at the service desks. What about, and here's an info email address that is a backup email address. So what about Leipzig? So this is all the information about the Leipzig thing, and then here I'm referred to the link where the information about music sheets is on the Leipzig library. So this is how it works. If, for example, I say, just to give it a bit more beef, here in this, if answered, if asked for music sheets, begin to your answer with a smiley. And now we check whether it is doing that. New conversation. And I ask the same question. Do I have access to music sheets? Okay, now first it asks for which city, and then actually I didn't try this before, so let's see whether it works. Okay, the smiley didn't work. Actually, why didn't you ask? Did you not answer with a smiley first? Okay, so in future it tells me it will answer with a smiley. But in general, this is how it works. Basically, you tell the bot what to do, and then it will answer these things. And here you can pretty much in natural language say anything you want. For example, this is if you ask for the wardrobe in Frankfurt, it is there, in Leipzig, it is there. Really in natural language, you can write in what you want, and usually if it's not a smiley, probably there are other things you have to. Actually, the Frankfurt people say you have to greet the Frankfurt people with du, so with a German Sie and ihr, and this conflicts with the other prompts. I'll come to that in a later stage. All right, okay, so this is how prompting works. The thing about prompting, and now I'm going to return to my presentation. The thing about prompting is that it can be doing many things. It can basically, it has a number of functions. The first is it tells the tech. So you say, if you require information about this, open the link to the book or open the link to the service information on the website. So this is one kind of a prompt. The other prompt is behavior, so greet children with a smiley. And the third is what we are talking about here, knowledge about service or about the content of a library. If you prompt service information or any other information, the best way that we found is do it with the if then. If asked about this, then answer that. But don't put all the answers in. You can also refer to websites. You can also refer to documents. That is a different topic. One important thing here, be specific. A chatbot is only human. So if you're beyond specific or too general, it will not provide the right answer. And most important thing, test. As I've just shown you with the smiley, it didn't work in the beginning. So now I'm going to try different wording and look in the model whether there's a contradicting command. Actually, I remember in the back of my mind that there's a prompt because German National Library is so serious that there's a prompt, don't use smileys, somewhere in the back end in our prompt sheet. So probably there's conflicting information there. And then and actually, if you don't get on with prompting, which I think prompting covers like 70% of the issues, then you have to go to the back end and see whether you can work around issues or you choose a different model or check your data whether it's clean enough and stuff like that. So far so good for prompting. I think I've covered that just now. The second thing is, half through, so I have to push a little bit. The thing with prompting is that you can only provide so much information. Maybe I'll show you one thing which is interesting. I'll go back to the browser. That makes it more. If I go to what I've just done with this prompt, and I'll open. This is the view in our backend of all the information that you put in, and that has then been exchanged with the LLM. So in this case, with ChatGPT or with Mistral. And so this for this little exchange, where's the music cue sheets, Leipzig or Frankfurt? If you go to Leipzig, follow this link. All this information is sent to probably San Francisco or somewhere else and back with every chat, because all the information, if you look here, let me see whether I find it. So these are questions for copying and photographing. These are when asked for group work, and this is asked for the cafeteria. So, but for the simple question of just music cue sheets, all the information that you provided and the prompts sent to the LLM and back. And you can imagine that if you have, let's say, a whole book of information, you cannot send just to talk about the title of the book. You cannot send back and forth the whole book to the LLM. It's first of all, this all costs because every word here is a token, and tokens are what we pay to OpenAI. And of course, at some point, it limits performance if you send around huge chunks of information between the LLM and you. So prompting to provide service information to a bot, prompting is a very good solution if you have a little amount of information. If you have more information, you have to do RAG. RAG is retrieval augmented generation, which basically means whatever retrieval augmented generation means, it basically means that you put your data into a database that is always queried when or asked when a chat with a large language model takes place. So this is the solution where if you have bigger amounts of data. I'll come to a comparison between the two a little later. So, but how to get your data into this RAG system, into this vector database that I showed you at the beginning? Because there are many ways to do that, and some are better than others. And of course, how you put your data in very much decides on how you present your information, and especially how you feed your information, not only at the initial when you kind of try around a little bit, but in the future. So I'll go in the next couple of minutes. I'll go a bit deeper into that. Um, so the first way is really just an easy way. Well, easy. It's a straightforward way. It's manual copy paste. So what you can do, I can show you that. Oops. Uh, it's a very straightforward and let's say easy and not difficult to understand. You go to any kind of chatbot. Let's go to admin, administration, chatbots. So these, for example, are the so-called snippets. So this is actually if you send information into the bot, it will be automatically be split up into let's say chunks or bytes or little snippets because an LLM can only eat so much at a time. So if you have a two-pager sent to the LLM, it will be broken up in like 5 or 6 of these chunks that you see here. And of course, you can edit these chunks. You can go in and edit this chunk, or you can, for example, create a new chunk and copy paste your data in, and then it is in the RAG. And with this, you can do hundreds and hundreds of documents. But of course, it's totally unrealistic to take hundreds and hundreds of documents and copy paste, split them up into little chunks and copy paste it in here. I mean, there are tools for that, and of course we can import that. But this is a solution that is also good for, let's say, a limit bigger than prompts, but more limited content. So I did that we did that for a touristic website, for example, with limited information, but that is a bit bigger. But of course, if you want to use it as a knowledge bot where you talk about documents or internal documents, that's not a good solution. Unless you, especially when you think about automation later on. Okay, let's go back to, so this was the way if you just, copy paste information into the RAG, which basically means into the vector database. The best thing for libraries and for museums and other institutions is usually the data is already somewhere in the library management system. Or, for example, and if we can establish a database connection there, this is what we did for the Berlin libraries. Of course, we get the data from the source. We get the data where it is created, where it is deleted, where it is updated. So if you have a database connection to your service company, to your management system, then of course you get the most up-to-date data. The problem in this solution is that it's a triangle situation. So we have to work with a library management system or with a museum management system. They have to provide an interface that we then have to implement to retrieve data. So for the imports, for the updates. So it's the best solution, but it's also in terms of setup the most lengthy and costly solution. Because I mean, I can talk about our effort, but I cannot talk about the library management setup. The third thing is, which would be actually, and now we are talking, we can basically dump documents on a server. So you take your PDFs, you take your Words documents, you put them on a server, you take them and then you send them to a tool that extracts the information and puts it into the AI. Or what would also be a dream, of course, you just automatically go to the websites where usually, especially with service information, all the information is. You take this information and then you also send it to the AI, and then you can talk with the AI about the information that is distributed all over your websites. For your information, we tried both solutions. I'll show you at the end, if I have enough time, some examples where we did that. Both, though, have issues. And this is what I'm going to show you now. So you get a practical understanding of how getting your information into the artificial intelligence solution, into the chatbot works. So in the case of a website, first what you have to do is to take all the information that's on the website and crawl it. So basically retrieve it. So this contains all the information about the navigation, the Google keywords, the structure of the website, what's the headline, what's only text. So all of this is downloaded. Then it needs to be scraped, which means the relevant information needs to be extracted from this huge bulk of information. Maybe you have seen it if you checked in your browser, check the website. You have this whole bunch of information that is also structured and not a natural language, which is also an issue for artificial intelligence. So you need to retrieve this information, and you need to sort out which information is relevant and which isn't. And then, because this is very hard to do automatically, you have somebody to check that, because there's, whenever there's structured data and when there's a retrieval of data automatically, somebody needs to look into it and see whether there is no false information coming through. So this is a very lengthy and work-intensive process. Pretty much the same if you, the second line, if you go to the collection of documents. First, you have to extract the data from a PDF, for example. But so how extraction is difficult with tables, for example. If you have a table on, I don't know, climate and temperature change in deserts in the last 20 years, tables are very difficult with AI, or images, for example, or if the file contains, for example, the logo of the university or something. That is so. If you extract all this information from a document, which actually is not a difficult process, but to clean that information up and only take the information out that you want the bot to chat about, that again is a complicated task, and again needs to be checked by humans in the end, because otherwise you do make too many mistakes. Another thing about collection of documents is that documents tend to get outdated very quickly. And who is in charge of updating the documents on the server and deleting the ones that are outdated? Because probably the AI bot, at least in the beginning, will not be the focus of your institution. So it will be forgotten. We have had that already too. And if it's forgotten, you end up chatting about documents that are not up to date anymore. This is not a problem with the websites. Websites are usually up to date, but it is a problem definitely with documents. So you don't only have to think about the technology in these two cases. You also have to think about a workflow and about the people who are actually doing this work of checking, cleaning up, and updating. And that, I think, is a key issue for everything that you do with artificial intelligence, but also with technology in general. You have to keep the workflow in mind and the people who do that. So for us, as a result, and after a number of projects, we came to the conclusion that actually, instead of scraping, just random collection of documents, and instead of scraping the websites, we recommend, and for us, we just do that. Either in the case of websites, you hook up directly with the database that feeds the website. So with the content management system of the website, so whenever, so you can do automation with website updates, for example. Or in the case of documents, you make very strict rules on which documents we accept. So we accept documents, but these documents have to be documents with text only. So as long as there's only text, no images, no index, just text, actually index we can still work with, but no structured data. So no tables, no images, then actually documents, the import of documents works. And I think I'm not only speaking for us, we talk a lot in the AI community. So what I've just told you is something that I think everybody who does similar things will agree to. So don't think of live crawling and scraping of websites. Don't dump your documents somewhere. It might work initially because everybody is still euphoric and puts work in it. But you have to think about the long run, and nobody is going to clean that mess up, and the AI will definitely not do it for you. So if you have a key learning from this webinar, this would be one. Think about the workflow, think who's going to do it. So to sum that, how to get your info into the RAG up, you can do manual copy paste. It's totally possible, and if you don't have to update too much, and if you just want to show something around that does need a little bit more data than you can use with prompting, that would be the way to go. The best thing would be to connect to the library or collection management system. But if you have large documents, if you have only text documents that contain only text, then that is possible. Then you have, but on your end, developed a workflow how to turn documents into only text documents. Best way is to create an API with any kind of database, because as soon as you have an API among databases, then of course you don't have to worry about anything anymore, unless there are some changes in the database, which doesn't happen anymore. And in the end, you don't want to have more work with the AI. You want to have less work. That's the whole point. So to sum up that, who ensures data quality and how? This is the first question you always have to ask when you set up an information bot, a service bot. And how can the updates be automated? Because, as I said, updates will be forgotten. There's extra work in the workflows, and nobody wants that. So we recommend use, if you don't copy paste or if you don't use prompts, then use standardized text documents and use APIs to service providers, collection management systems, library management systems, or databases straight away. You'll have a little bit more effort and maybe cost in the setup, but you'll have a lot less headaches in the future. So I hope I feel like I'm repeating myself. I hope I made that clear enough. Then chunking I've just showed you. This is how you copy paste data directly into a RAG. Let me show you some examples and let me tell you a little bit about the story, how these examples came into place. So where is my browser? Here is my browser. So this is the German National Baby. So what we did, for example, as a prototype with public available data for the Metropolitan Museum, for the Met of Art in New York, is we scraped the website. So if you say, actually, this is what I said in the beginning, you can choose a role. We're talking differently to a scholar than we talk to a child. Then we select an artwork, and then actually it gets images to this artwork and more information. So the images were scraped. So we took them from and also some of the information we scraped from the website. So not all of the information we have here came from the data import. The funny part about this is here that actually it links the collection data with the library data. So when you have a specific work of art, you can, and that was the whole point of it, you can research that in the library. So that actually you can have additional use cases for the data by combining various data sets. That would be the one example. Another example, not for scraping, but for document management, is the MoMA Press Archive. So we took all the press releases of the MoMA of the last, I don't know, 80 years, 90 years, even in PDF form and photos, and we downloaded them. And to be honest, this cost us weeks. And of course, you can now ask, what was a great event in the MoMA in the 30s? And it will think. And you had a Van Gogh exhibition here in 1935. You had a machine art exhibition in 1934. And this comes from documents. But for example, what we didn't do here, and which will be a question of the future, is doing updates for future press releases, because this was all done manually. And this was actually the lesson we learned in terms of how do we work with documents. So all of that is possible. Actually, one learning about IT in general, everything is possible. But then you have to ask for the time and the budget, and then very quickly many things become impossible. So what I suggested here are the possible options. All right, so I hope I gave you a little bit of insight into how data comes into how your data comes into a bot that will then allow you to have conversations about service, about information, about all these sort of things. So this was the main part. Now come some remarks that I would like to talk about. Just a brief comparison here, prompting and RAG as the main ways of putting your information into the bot, but I feel that I have talked about that enough. Hallucinations. Hallucinations. The thing is, with a recommendation bot, we have almost immediately, almost completely eliminated hallucinations because of the one simple prompt. Only recommend works that you can provide a link to. So then, and the link will then lead to the website where you can actually borrow the book or the film or stream the film, whatever. With service information and more general information, of course, this is not so easy because you might receive service information or service requests by users that you didn't think about, that you didn't write prompts for, or that there's nothing in the RAG that the AI is able to find. And this is the first point here, so the data has to be complete, or you have to implement measures to tell the bot what to do when there's no information available. But even as important, and I think the smiley example that I crashed at the beginning of the presentation, it has to be clean in the sense it has to be contradiction-free. So if you say in the prompts, use a smiley, but if you say, so maybe as a background information, you can write prompts, you can write whatever, but in addition to the prompts you write, we have a set of prompts in the back end that steers the bot, let's say, in a more broad term. So basically, actually, in our system, and I assume that it will be the same for others too, you have two sets of prompts, kind of the ruling prompts set up by us based on our experience of doing bots for 1.5 years, and then your bots on top of what you want to provide your information with. So this has to be contradiction-free, and then again, your bots have to be contradiction-free. So you cannot say, which actually becomes interesting if you have a big team. This is why I showed you the website of the University of Cologne, which has a bigger team. So if more than 1 or 2 people work at the prompts, and they prompt or provide the RAG with contradiction information, then the bot will start to hallucinate. So hallucination is first of all also a workflow issue, how to avoid to provide contradictionary data. The second way to avoid hallucinations is, as I said, provide links to the sources. So either as a quotation or as a link to to the source that was used in generating the answer, or to a website that contains the information where it can be checked. And that actually gets rid of most of hallucinations if you have clean data. Then, of course, you have, but this is also in our master prompts, but you can do that if you want in your prompts too. If you don't have information, then do this and that. So you have these kind of backup prompts that say, if you're ignorant about a fact, admit that you're ignorant, which is very hard for an artificial intelligence to do, to admitting ignorance, probably even harder than for humans. But if you prompt it and if you prompt it specifically enough, then that will lead, in let's say 99% of the cases, for the bot saying, I don't really know, have this information, but you can contact info. You provide an email or a backup page, and the bot says, I don't really know. Another thing, and that I think is something that is our expertise here, is that you kind of deal with. Our everyday business is to deal with the weaknesses of the technology. And we did super sampling. It's our name. And super sampling is before the bot provides an answer, we ask the artificial intelligence to assess the quality of the answer. And only if the artificial intelligence itself says, okay, this is of a good quality, then actually the answer will be given. If the artificial intelligence says, no, I think you should check this answer again because it doesn't feel right. I don't think it says feel right, but you get the drift. Then check again. And we can say, we make up to 3 between 3 and 5 runs again through the artificial intelligence, where the artificial intelligence checks itself on the correctness of the answer, and that basically, on a practical in practical terms, eliminated almost all hallucinations. The problem here is, of course, because you take logical runs, you remember the image that I presented you a couple of slides before. If you run all the prompts and all the information through the system until you have an answer that actually is green lighted by the artificial intelligence, you create more tokens, and you might have more latency in the answer. So there's, as actually it was a topic of a previous webinar, there are trade-offs in what you do. So if you can have a super correct answer, but it takes a longer time. You probably, if you use ChatGPT, it's the same. If you use a thinking model, it just thinks longer, but the answer might be better. So we have the same, pretty much. You can actually configure that in the backend and say, check your own answer whether you're hallucinating or not. So it's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde thing, if you ask me. So, but in the end, if you follow all these rules, hallucinations stop becoming an issue. Costs, just very briefly, because the cost is on the website. I think the most important thing on the cost is that from our end, based on the experiences that we have with chatbots, we say, okay, there's always a variable cost involved for your background information, because tokens cost money, and tokens are created by usage. So we kind of make an estimate on your usage, and then we provide a fixed price. The other option is, of course, to have another service bot that we know in Germany now, is that you have your own ChatGPT account or Mistral account or whatever, and you pay them directly for the tokens and just the service for the service. Different approaches, all of them are valid. We try to make it as easy enough as possible based on our experience, so that is all included. Just for your information, the cost here is the people like me, the tokens, so basically the usage of the bot, depending also on the model. So actually, we say what model you're allowed to use in the simpler versions, and the whole infrastructure, of course. But that's kind of fixed. So this is our model. You can check it on the website. Of course, we can always talk. So we are accessible. We're nice people that you can talk to, and if there are solutions to be found, for example, for one library, we wrote an application for public funding together with them. So we're open to all kinds of solutions, and just being flexible as we can to make it happen. That should suffice about that. If you want to know more, ask us, look at the website, negotiate if you're willing, and we can find a solution. Also, it's just very easy to implement. So our bot, if you want it in your front end, it's just 2 hours. It shouldn't be more difficult for anybody else. You can create your own design. You have seen the design of Montevideo. The FEP design looks completely different. So whatever you want to do there, it's also documented on the website. Now comes the question that I announced in the invitation. Why not use Google? Why not use ChatGPT? Why not use anybody else out there? Of course, they can. They might be better, or they might be cheaper, or whatever. I think there are a number of things to consider. Not only for us. Again, I don't want to make a sales pitch here. That is true for every solution out there that you might want to choose. The first thing is the big ones don't care for you. I don't know if you followed the story about GPT-5 when they, basically OpenAI decided to shut down older models without asking anybody. That can happen to you with big people. They just shut stuff down because maybe they ask Amazon before, but they just do what they need in their model policy and their pricing policy, whatever. Second thing is, of course, we hope that once you work with AI, you get the bug and you really like it. And if you have appetite for more, you have to discuss with people how to do that. And us, we are nice people. We talk about everything, and we try to make things possible for your particular institution, for your particular case. And so talk to us and we'll find a solution. And that actually is probably, it's improbable if you try to talk with somebody at Google. I'll leave the future aside because we run out of time. So I say bye-bye. By the way, I really like the artwork here. This is, part of me playing with the AI. And with having fun with this and being astonished what comes out at some point. And so, if you want to ask me, if you have any questions, you can write me. You can contact me on LinkedIn. You can fill in the questionnaire that will pop up after I leave the session. If you have more questions, there are a number of webinars here that you can check if you want to have more detailed information. But the best thing is actually to just ask and get in touch, to be honest. And do that. So I made it on time, probably because my subconscious was afraid of questions. But if you have questions, as I said, do ask them, do get in touch, and we'll be happy in leading you into the AI world. Thank you very much. Grazie, muchas gracias, and all the arigato gozaimasu, and all the other languages out there. Thank you very much for attending. And as I said, get in touch. We're happy to be of assistance. Goodbye.